to take a commanding lead in the Sinquefield Cup. Back to you, Jen and Yas.
Yeah, he definitely has a chance.
Without question.
I mean, this is
I thought there was
Nakamura, but
I thought there were two results, either a draw or a favorable outcome for victory for Hikaru. And really, the move Queen E4 does look bad. That's a very uncharacteristic slip by Magnus. Queen E4. And again, we'll just take that because what happened a moment ago, why that was so significant. We'll go back here for this moment. Hikaru had just played the move Rook A8, obviously attacking this pawn on A4. Everybody liked Queen F4. And this move, Queen F4, had, in fact, multi-purposes. Obviously attacking two pawns, but after the move Rook D6, notice that the Rook is now stuck, if you will, on the square D6. And simultaneously, the pawn on A4 has been protected, which gives White the opportunity he needs to be able to activate his rook and get some play down the B file, or to have played King G2 with the idea perhaps of rover, rook up and over, getting his rook from F1 into the game. In fact, what he did was with this move Queen E4, Queen F6, now the queen is beautifully defending everything on the king side. There's no danger whatsoever to Black's king, and this rook is threatening to come to D4, snap off this A pawn, and really only White's advantage has grown considerably. I'll totally agree with Maurice 100% on that one.
Yeah, definitely
And we have
surprising
more moves?
development indeed. So a couple of slip-ups for Magnus in this line, in today's game. You know, we talked a little bit about taking on B5 as well, but...
Earlier.
Yeah, exactly, which kind of led to the potential for Nakamura to seize the initiative.
Right.
Now, after Queen to F6, Magnus has played Queen to B4.
Queen to B4. Okay. Magnus
Right, so,
really drifting here a bit. I just don't...
So supposing he's trying to respond to Rook D4 with Queen B7.
I understand that.
Idea.
I do understand that. Queen B4. Let me just kind of get the zen of that for a moment.
And as we do that, what do you think about this move, Queen B4? Maurice?
Well, Queen B4 is probably not so bad a move considering the circumstances. It turns out that that's the computer's first choice, believe it or not, Yaz. But also, Kamsky has just played the move Queen B4. So there's a simultaneous Queen B4 sighting in the other game as well. But after Queen B4 in Kamsky's game, Aronian has now played the move F5, and we've got action heating up in that game. F5 attacking the E-pawn, and it looks like this E-pawn is under so much threat, so many pieces, queen, knight, rook, and pawn, that this trade is necessary. And I don't know if there's any real action here after queen check, king over, knight takes on F5, and maybe just a forced trade here. I'm not sure what's happening in this position. It does seem as though this bishop will get the opportunity to go to this square at some point and pressure the pawn. Aronian seems fearless at the moment, thinking, you haven't been doing anything, I feel good. F5 on the board, so we're going to be looking at this game as it heats up towards the end of the first time control. Jen and Yas?
Great, wow, F5, I love it. You know, we were looking at Queen before, and you didn't think it smelled right.
No,
But the ideas you were trying, you know, White was being able to defend, but now Aronian also had the same instinct. And as we said, both of you guys are big fans of Larsen.
Right.
And came up with this kind of like Kasparovian move, F5. Whenever I think of F5 in weird position, I think of Kasparov because, you know, we seem to find these like dynamic and strange looking moves.
Mm-hmm. And the move F5 really starts to be far more attractive when White played this move King f2. I'm very surprised by that move by Gadakamsky, because then again, your eyes are automatically drawn to the e3 square. You should be thinking, I've got a rook, I've got a queen on the e-file. Can I play queen to e3? I thought that Gada was going to play the very solid choice, king g2. He didn't go for that, and that might be a crucial difference in the positions we're about to see in the game.
Oh yes, those little moves matter. We do have a couple more moves in after that. So after rook d8, queen b4, f5, e takes f5, g takes f5 on the board.
On the board, because this was a crucial moment right here, right now. I was thinking about the move rook c5 for white. The idea here is obviously I'm attacking your queen, and I want to close the position down. I was thinking that in case I force you to retreat, there is that piece sacrifice we looked at. Maybe it works in that circumstance. Something like e5 with the idea of shutting or closing off the king side. That was not Gada's choice. Instead, you say we have e takes f5, g takes f5 has been played on the board.
That's right.
Wow.
E takes f, g takes f.
Because I like that line that Maurice was showing. Wasn't it something with queen e3 check, king g2, as we like to say in the trade box, then followed by knight takes d5.
And the bishop's coming to d5, and all the forces seem to be working in concert. But
right. After, for example, a trade, white's king at the moment, sure, with that queen on e3, monster queen, would scare the bejesus out of me. With this idea of bishop d5.
And the rook being unable to shut that queen out because of the power on the d file.
Yes, you mean that rook on e1 would be a mistake because of the rook d2 invasion.
Exactly.
Right.
And very important to be able to just control that square. Like such a powerful queen is so huge. But let's see, after g takes f5, after g takes f5, does Iranian still have the big initiative? That's the question. So I guess he's thinking now rook e1 similarly could run into some knight e4 problems.
Shall we just take a look at that for sure?
So
rook
now,
e1,
so now knight e4 check. And
threatening to blast open on this knight. That looks good for black.
Very good, because it would seem that white would have to take on e4 now, and then after rook takes d4, we're...
Yikes.
That king, I mean, you can take on b7, but that king on f2 looks woeful indeed.
Yikes.
With the pawn coming up forward also to check on e3. It's ugly to say the least.
I would want nothing whatsoever to do with that line of play. And here, the thing that I would like to do suddenly, if I was white, is to play a move like queen c5, trading queens. But all that's going to do is encourage you to play bishop to d5 anyway. Here, I think defense might be the order of the day.
Right, you need to...
And coming back with a queen on d2 to maybe harass black's king a little with the move queen g5.
Hunkering down does seem like a wise decision in this position.
Right.
And now, Ian, and we got to ask ourselves, how can we increase our position now? And then you always got to watch out for c5 here. But you've got your little queen g5 check.
Business. But okay,
So,
let's just continue that, because c5 does make a great deal of sense. I'm going to give you a check anyway. Now, you can't trade queens because you've just put your pawn on c5. So we assume for a moment you move your king. I could drop back with my knight, and I like the defensive forces around white's king. This looks... all right, I could also have given you a check, Jen.
yeah, exactly. You could have kept checking me.
This is probably
So this is
not
this queen
a play
d2
for
move
a
does
win.
seem like the correct way to go about things here.
Well, assume that black puts his bishop on a very healthy square, bishop d5. If you give a check, in this case, because I haven't played c6, c5, I could now invite a queen trade, and this looks just fine for black. I don't see any particular problems here. Maybe still some, I don't know whose king is more vulnerable. No, this should be fine. I think queen d2, however, is a necessary defensive precaution by Gada.
Yeah, it looks forced.
And he has played it, not surprisingly.
So queen d2, key defensive move, and now we're not sure if Aronian can make much from his f5, but Grandmaster Ashley, thoughts on taking back an f5 and queen d2?
Well, knight takes f5 seemed natural after the queen e3 check idea, but Aronian decides to keep the tension in the position by capturing on f5, and queen d2, believe it or not, might be a real inaccuracy in this position because Aronian can simply guard against that move with queen dropping back to f6, no queen g5 check anymore, and this pin might start to become significant on this knight here. Black is apparently a little bit better in this position. According to the engines, it's giving a variation. Look at this incredible line. Queen to f4, knight e4 check. And after pawn takes, rook takes on d4. Definitely a crazy looking line, especially since it's giving moves like queen takes f5, just dropping back queen to g7. And now black has got the king somewhat exposed. The f-file is interesting. Bishops might move. Totally mad line that could happen on the board, and so computer-esque. You can't imagine white seeing it. Maybe black won't see it either. We'll have to see how that goes. But I'd like to point out what's happening in the other game, because Carlsen is down to 3 minutes and 46 seconds and counting. 3:46. Now he's going to get 7 minutes because of 30 seconds added each move, so another 14 minutes he'll have per move. 14 minutes he'll have total, but still sitting on 3 minutes with Nakamura at 19 minutes. That's got to be crazy. It's got to be a lot of stress. Nakamura just played the move rook to a7. So clearly Carlsen in trouble and needing to move. He's just played king g2. We'll see how this one proceeds in the next few moves. But the number one player under pressure from the U.S. number one player who's looking to score his very first victory against his nemesis. Back to you, Jen and Yas.
Thank you, Maurice. Yeah, so it looks like Carlsen, Nakamura, plenty of juice left in this position. Rook to a7 with the idea of stopping queen b7 and perhaps soon renewing the rook to d4 threat. Now, it's too soon to play rook d4 because queen b8 check is in the area. That's why I think Nakamura is likely to follow suit with Carlsen's king g2 and move his king to g7 and create that rook d4 idea.
Right. So just to be clear, what you're mentioning, Jen, is the immediate desirable rook d4 to go after when the a4 pawn unfortunately loses to the double attack check and black loses a rook.
And sunglasses would be smashed.
Sunglasses would. So you have to preface that aggressive rook d4 move with the move king g2. Now here, I don't know, maybe this move rook a7 is brilliant. It looks a little bit funny.
Looks awkward to you?
Yeah, it
really?
does.
You don't like having your rook on a7 not defended by any pieces and a closed file?
Exactly. So I'm just
not
thinking.
Saying it's bad. I agree. It looks awkward.
It does look awkward.
So you just want to push that pawn forward. So now with rook d4, you can just play something like queen c5.
Right. Precisely. That is exactly the idea, that rook d4 doesn't work after queen c5. Picks up a nice little tempo over there against the rook on a7.
And how are you feeling about queen trade ideas now? For instance, queen. That's why I was going to do queen d6.
Okay, so you have to keep the pawn covered. But now that your king's on g7, I think you're giving me a chance to play moves like queen c3 check and rook a1.
Although now I'll play queen d4. Oh, queen g4 check. Okay.
Yeah, and rook a1. Your queen's not on f6 anymore, so you've given me this opportunity to maybe defend the pawn. So we'll go back just a moment here, Jen, and after a5, how about this move? Just cold-bloodedly going after the pawn in this way. So long as your queen's on f6, I like that very much because you're stopping rook a1. In this line of play, we are giving white the opportunity to shift and play for the d file. A number of moves have been played in the game And again, bringing up Maurice's point, not much time for Magnus Carlsen, so he really has to quicken the pace.
Yeah, that definitely will make the defensive task more difficult for Magnus anytime you're on defensive in both the clock and the position. So after rook to a7, king g2, it looks like rook d8, your move was played, and queen g4 check, king f8.
So sorry, pardon me. After king g2, what was the choice of Magnus? Rook a8 at once?
You mean, Nakamura.
Pardon me.
Nakamura is the one who's better in this position. I know it's hard.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's hard to realize that.
Gotcha on that one. Okay, then came queen g4 check.
That's right, and then
king f8. Okay. Things very, very scary here for a second. What if I were to play the obvious queen d7, in the immortal words of Nikolai Minev, gift me the pawn on c7?
Right, so you're trying, well, you can't, I'm not going to take on a4 and let you take on c7.
No, that would be a dreadful trade, strategically.
And what's your idea if I play queen d6?
My idea behind, I'm not afraid of your trading queens, and I was actually, in fact, going to play rook
nice
d1
that's a good move.
to encourage you
like
to trade
that.
queens, just to so our viewers, now the bishop attacks the rook, and of course we're threatening to promote the pawn to a queen.
All right, we're getting some fast and furious moves here,
Wow.
and this would obviously be quite sufficient for white.
Exactly.
So instead, in the game, we had queen g4 check, king f8, queen d7.
Oh, Magnus did play
So queen d7 was played, and now instead of the lemon looking queen d6, e6 was played.
Okay, with the move e6, by the way, is this a sweet queen trap or what? I mean, even with sunglasses on, we should all see that rook d8
that would be
is
nice.
the dirty, dirty, dirty idea of Hikaru. Evil. So rook d1 is basically forced to stop, to control the square d8.
That's right. I like that little queen trap, though.
Oh.
That's the kind of thing that could work if you're not playing the world number one.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's almost like you have to snicker to yourself when you play a move like e6.
That's the kind of thing that Nakamura plays in 1-minute games. You know, he started from 1 minute and now he's here.
Right. Oh, we could all very easily fall for such a queen trap. So I'm assuming rook d1. It has been played. Magnus is, even though he's in time trouble, he's finding all of these moves, and still looks like what Maurice said when they got into this ending originally, that great fortress potential for white.
Yeah, making it hard. So any kind of queen trade offering that black makes, white has a really nice response, right?
Right.
First of all, we could ignore it because if queen takes, well, maybe in this situation we wouldn't want to, but
No.
But the other thing is that white can also take and play rook d7 check in these lines.
Precisely.
And getting that activity is key, because now it's going to be hard for you to take on a4 because you will capture on c7.
Always. And once the rook gets to d7, which is just a dream come true from white's perspective, white's got this nasty bishop h5 just to make black's
right. Counterplay of our own.
Right.
And instead, Nakamura has played queen to e5. So
okay,
let's try to understand what that move is doing. Well, clearly it's overprotecting that pawn on c7 so that we can try to release our rook and take on a4.
Precisely so. So rook d1, stopping that queen trap, rook d8 had to be dealt with. Queen e5, protecting the pawn on c7 so that we can play rook takes a4. Now Magnus to play.
A little under 3 minutes on the clock, so 10 moves to go.
Right.
Now, Magnus, the pressure is on. Queen's still on the board. It's not easy
Right.
for him to come up with these moves that quickly. As soon as the queens are traded off, it's a little bit easier. So,
Here I would shift direction. I would say, look, congratulations, you've protected your pawn on c7. Let me nibble over here.
let's go back to your other idea.
Oh, sorry. What was the other idea?
Oh, no, I like rook h1. But
You do?
saying, well, I don't know if I like it, but I'm just saying instead of taking on a4 immediately, we could also consider, I guess if we play queen g5, though, you can just transpose.
Well, queen g5, you release the defense.
I know, I'm just I'm going for the cheapo again.
Oh, you're trying. Oh, you dirty.
Try it,
Oh, women's chess. I mean, okay. Tough stuff. Look at this. Rook h5.
And then queen f6.
And now I'm set up for the defense of my a pawn. That would be very nice. Queen d2. With the
Avoiding my cheapo, rook d8.
With the double threat, though, I want to take the pawn on h6, and I want to boost my a pawn to the a5 square.
All right, so let's retreat.
All right, let's
and
go back.
Find a better move after rook to h1.
Okay, we have this position on the board. Magnus to play. Not much time. We're expecting him to come up with rook h1.
Almost down to just a minute here.
No way.
Wow, and
no way.
I mean, you think these moves come naturally. He's got to keep a little bit of initiative, otherwise, the exchange for Nakamura will flourish.
Well, exactly. He's got to keep Black busy with the a4 pawn. He can't just lose that a4 pawn for nothing, and he's got to keep the pressure on Hikaru as well.
So yeah, we're keeping our eyes on this game because it's so thrilling to see the world #1 in time pressure, and it does look like he played rook h1, and we've got something with Maurice.
Indeed, Jan. I just want to point out the clock situation: 30 seconds and counting. 30, 28, counting down now. He's got to play quickly. Let's update the board position. This is what we have on the board now, and he has played rook h1, so this is coming soon. But we have a clock ticking down to 14 seconds. This seemingly cannot be correct because he did play rook to h1 pretty quickly, and no way the time goes down to 0 here. I'm seeing this clock go down, and so there must be an issue with this time we have here because it's saying double zeros. He did play rook h1 in time, so we'll see if we can get that correct, because right now the internet feed is giving us as no time on the clock. So let's see if we can get the updated time there. His rook h1 did appear on the board, so he's still clearly okay in the position. But man, the time situation is so crucial. It could just be over any minute now. One mistake in time pressure and he could blow it. So Nakamura completely in the driver's seat.
Wow.
To update everyone, we do have the official time. The update is 52 seconds, so under a minute. And look at Magnus, he's looking nervous. It does look like he put his rook back to d1, so maybe Hikaru did renew the threat of rook d8. Perhaps he just moved his queen back to f6.
Queen back to f6.
Would be my guess. Is that what happened?
And then rook probably.
Because I see that the rook came back to d1.
Okay, I'm expecting king g7.
Oh, okay.
King
Let's
G7.
update it because I think instead we've got instead I'm hearing the king g7 happen.
Yeah.
And then rook b1.
Rook h1 was played.
And then king g7 is defending that. Rook to b1.
Rook b1.
So going for counterplay in a different way.
Wow.
Hitting on that b7 square. And
wow.
now Nakamura playing queen to e5.
Queen's on e5 already?
Now Nakamura on move, exactly, after rook b1.
Right, so rook b7 is Magnus's...
Magnus was still about 52 seconds, 51 now.
You know, when Maurice was doing the countdown, 12 seconds, 10 seconds, 0, 0, it happens. It's extraordinarily rare, but it has happened. Sometimes you press the clock and you don't hit the button fully. You just kind of do it, like with a hand slap and not realizing that you haven't properly pushed your button. That would have been extraordinary to see.
You gotta properly push your button.
You gotta properly push your button.
So you
rook
set me
b1
up for that one.
Yes.
But yeah, rook to b1. I mean, this is really unbelievable that Nakamura is putting so much pressure on his real villain of his chess career so far.
Yes.
And very exciting for us fans. And we've got something taken off the board. Rook takes a4.
And here we're gonna go rook b7. I mean, Magnus has got to play it quickly.
And if anybody knows how to put pressure on an opponent who's on time pressure, it is Nakamura.
Yes.
So he's not going to let Magnus have an easy time of getting out of this in time pressure. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a number of pretty quick moves from Nakamura. Not that that's a recommended strategy for those of you at home.
No.
But if he has seen it, if he's looked at the moves that Magnus has played,
yes.
if it's no surprise, he will try to play quickly.
Absolutely. Okay, but now here's the point.
Rook b7 played.
Rook b7 played. Very obvious intention of capturing this pawn on c7 by the rook, which would lead to an attack against the f7 pawn. If Hikaru drops back with a rook, this just doesn't look very edifying. The rooks on a8 and a7 don't make a very good impression. So I suspect if Hikaru is playing for the win, he's going to do it the other way with his rook and maybe play rook on a8, a7.
Right, and we are up this exchange, but pretty hard to figure out how to make progress here. Now, what do you think about taking a cue from his countryman and playing h5, h4 in this position? Because I just don't see what we can really like chomp on in this position as black.
Exactly, and again, turning this turnip into a rose. That h6 pawn has been a kind of a handicap for Hikaru, and your suggestion of h5, h4 to try to expose White's king makes a lot of sense to me as well.
Yes, and it looks like we have got another move on the board. We'll update that whenever possible. After rook to b7, Magnus Carlsen had 1 minute and 14 seconds. So those 30-second increments do add up and give him a little bit of rope.
Yes. Maurice has some thoughts to share. Maurice, please.
Well, that Carlsen game is obviously extremely exciting. I just want to also get your attention on the other game as well. It looked like Aronian had some time pressure problems himself. He was down to 4 minutes to move. So the game proceeded with the move queen g7 is the last move we saw, queen to c3, and queen h6, threatening maybe possibly this move, queen h2 check, but not seriously. So queen d2 was played by Kamsky, and Aronian decided to repeat moves with queen to g7 and queen to c3 is Kamsky's repetition, so they might be worried about the clock situation. At least Aronian might be worried about the clock situation and is willing to repeat moves and maybe go towards a draw because move 40 is already 3 moves away, so it's hard to get that tantalizing move 40 where you can then sit and relax and really figure out what's happening in the position. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of moves. Will Aronian repeat with queen to h6? Or will he try to come up with something else in an effort to win the game and get back into the winner's circle, at least get in the winner's circle to somehow be able to challenge Nakamura and Carlsen, who are in the thick of it right now? Back to you guys.
Yeah, we're getting some excitement in both games here at round 3 of the Sinquefield Cup. Now, let's go back to Carlsen Nakamura, where we've got a little bit of a time skirmish and a rook to a7. So he did move the rook on the 4th rank back to a7.
Right.
You weren't quite expecting that, and now we have a little creeping move, as they call those tiny little queen moves, to e7.
Well, in this position, it's like one of those things where White has maximized everything. His king is good, his bishop is good, his pawns are good, the queen, the rook, and so, but you got to make a move. And in time trouble, you got to make any move. And this is actually a pretty good move. It's basically a waiting move.
Well, it also stops, it takes some of the bite away from that h5, h4 idea as well.
Precisely. So it's like you're nipping in the bud before it could even...
Before it even happens, because if you were to play h5, I mean, we might even just have the frontal attack queen h4, and it would be a little awkward to try to defend that pawn because potential rook h8 leaves the other rook on a7 hanging.
Exactly. Now, this is a very, very awkward setup that Black has with his rooks. I mean, I know Hikaru did this in order to win that pawn on a4, but Black really has no intentions whatsoever of ever capturing this pawn, trading rooks on b7, because this pawn on b7 would just be too strong. I mean,
that's almost a move that you just like tune out.
Absolutely.
I mean,
if
it worked, it would be like a genius move because most players would not even consider it.
Precisely. So I think that Maurice is right. His intuition earlier said that White has really good fortress style position, and we're seeing it right now. I don't see how
Nakamura leaning back. Doesn't matter if he's wearing sunglasses. He's leaning back. Okay, for a second he looked like he was a little bit agitated, but then nodding vigorously. Hard to figure out this guy and what he's feeling at the board. And then we got something
A
was
capture,
exchanged,
a
it
trade
appears.
of rooks.
So maybe
The
Rook
moment.
takes, let's try to update this. So Rook takes B7 was played, and I just said that this would be a brilliant move because most strong players wouldn't consider it, but Nakamura, not any strong player. What on earth is his idea here?
All I can imagine is that after a move like Rook B8, his intention is to try to utilize his C pawn and to. But I think you're going to get in a position where what we would call in chess mutual Zugzwang, that is to say, neither player being able to make headway in this kind of
move. So let's see if we're getting an update here.
So Rook takes B7, C takes B7 has been
Rook
played.
B8, all played on the board. Again, just interesting to see how the top players in the world, or the world elite, will look at the exceptions, right?
This is a very big exception too, allowing that pawn to B7, and we are expecting
Queen D7 on the board.
As expected, Rook
So now
B8.
the little threat of well, actually, I guess the threat is something like Bishop C6 followed by Queen C8. Because Queen C8 immediately you can release the pawn on C7, but for instance, if it was White's move here, Bishop C6 might be very strong, and then Black's the one who's in trouble.
Yeah, well, okay, so
you can always play Queen D6.
Yeah, at any
I'm giving
kind
myself
of
a lot of moves in a row.
Right. Well, this might be one tricky, trappy idea that Hikaru has in mind. Is after the move. What about this move, Queen D6, Jen? If you go Queen C8, which is the desirable idea, right? You'd like your queen on C8. Queen C8, your queen gets trapped after the move Queen D8.
Right, and now we're compelled to trade.
Which is not what White wants. Unless there's some, you got to calculate who's fast. Well, actually, I beg your pardon. I can't even cross the D file because the rook would be on the D file in that case. Let me go back. So I think after Queen D6, White's going to have to step back with his queen, maybe some move like Queen A4 to try to harass Black's king over here, maybe with a Queen G4 check. I still have to feel that this pawn on B7 is so exceptionally strong, White should be fine.
And let's go back to Maurice, who has some thoughts, I think, on the other game.
Indeed, Aronian did not repeat moves in that game. It looks like he wants to win. He wanted to maybe repeat moves just once in order to get a little time on the clock. But instead of repeating with the move Queen to H6, he made his intentions clear by playing the move Bishop to D5. And after knight back to E2, looking to trade queens, Aronian didn't mind that. He plunked down the bishop on the B3 square, attacking the rook, adding a little bit of pressure. This game seems very close indeed. 38 moves in, 2 moves to make. Aronian with 3.5 minutes on his clock. Make that 4.5 minutes because he gets to make 2 moves and catch up in time. So trying to win in his game is Aronian, clearly wanting the point instead of just a half a point in order to get back in the contest. Back to you guys.
Wow. So 2 great games approaching time control. Nakamura and Carlsen, just a few moves to go before they get that extra 30 minutes at the end of 40 moves. And after Queen to D7, Nakamura did play C5.
He did play C5. Okay, and that Aronian game, the one that I have got up on my screen at the moment, that still looks pretty even to me. But I got to admire the fighting spirit of Aronian, who's behind on the clock, made the repetition and said, no, I do want to play for the win. Let's go back.
It. Yeah, all fighting players here at the Sinquefield Cup. And it's one of the nice things about having a tournament like this where the organizers invite all the all the players, because you know the players like Nakamura get more invitations than other players of a similar rating.
Because of the fighting spirit, absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, surprising to me, I think I would have plunked down the move Queen C8 at once had I been in Carlsen's shoes in this game. Instead, he played Queen C6, and I can't make heads or tails of that move as to what the difference was. I would like to keep that rook imprisoned by my queen on C8. But in any case, how could Hikaru possibly squeeze anything from this position.
Well, and he's made a move on the king side, it appears.
I think, Jen, the only thing I can see is at some point you toss that h-pawn up the board a la Bent Larsen, and you hope you can expose white's king to some types of frontal attacks with the rook and queen.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it does look like Naka has played a kingside move. So either he moved the king or he did go for the h5 idea. And it's nice that we got this kind of dark square fortress, so he almost doesn't even have to look. Queen and the rook are defending all the key points in the position, and just see if he can squeeze something out. Then and it looks like he played king f6.
He may have prefaced.
He did play king f6.
Okay, so king f6 on the board, and again, the only thing that I can see that could cause white any discomfort is an eventual pushing of the h-pawn.
Just 3 moves to go for time control. So that's what happens with this 30-second increment, that even a time deficit that looks dangerous often evaporates. And now Magnus with 59 seconds, but with just 2 more moves to make.
But objectively speaking, how could Hikaru make any progress? If I put my queen on c8 and I keep it there, what on earth could Hikaru possibly do to upset this setup by white?
So you're not really worried about h5 and h4. You can just take it when it gets there. Yeah.
I'll take it with the idea of not allowing a rook to g8 check. That was why I wanted queen c8 in the first place. And if I have to play a move, by the way, it would probably be king h3 and back to g2. So again, I'm just thinking to myself, I just don't see how Hikaru is able to make any progress.
And after king f6, we do have a move similar to what you suggested, king to h2. So instead of playing his king on h3, he just killing time.
Killing time.
Killing time until we reach that 40th move, the promised land, right?
Exactly.
And we've got some more thoughts from Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, I think, in our other game, Approaching Time Control.
Approaching actually now has turned into reached completely. The time control has been reached by both players, 40 moves, and a simultaneous siding again. You saw king f6 in the Nakamura game, and now king f6 by Aronian, and this position looks very equal. They've both gotten to move 40. They're going to take a good look at the position and see whether or not they want to keep on playing, but it looks like there's not much to hope for in this position. And in the other game, Yaz, I got to agree with you. How in the world is Nakamura supposed to win this position? This b-pawn is protected forever, and how do you make any progress? Well, Nakamura may start thinking about advancing his f and e pawns in order to somehow get this bishop from protecting this pawn, but man, that's going to expose the king quite a bit, and I don't see how that works well. There's going to be tons of perpetual check opportunities. Maybe he's thinking of trading queens too, so queen d6 and then maybe later f5 and see what happens. Very difficult, though. Looks more or less equal to me, but Nakamura really would love to win this game. The reality is he's only playing for 2 results, as you mentioned. No way he loses the position, so why not torture Carlsen for as long as possible to make him know, I'm not afraid of you, dude. Watch when I have white next time. Back to you in the studio.
Just a few days, and Nakamura is going to get the white pieces against Magnus Carlsen. And the big question on everyone's mind is sunglasses or no. Besides the other questions like e4, d4, c4.
I fear that if it works, we're going to see him again. I fear if it works. And good point, Maurice, that when you are on the sunny side of the torture, do your very best to grind your opponent. Certainly, Hikaru has been ground down numerous times by Magnus, so he knows what it feels like to be on the receiving end of the torture. But this is a good point. You've made a very, very good point, and thank you for that, Maurice. Excuse me. After king e7, and let's go back with our king for a moment, and queen d6, and in case of queen c8, now I'm beginning to have some doubts. Maurice was mentioning that at least Black does have this idea of f5. Let's just play a few lousy moves for white for a moment so I can show you what I mean. This was what Maurice was saying, is if you can play e6, e5 to e4 and block out that bishop from protecting that pawn on b7, you may have a shot at winning. I still see the bishop coming to c6. In this case, though, after bishop c6, you do release the c pawn. So, okay.
And we've got a move. King g2, f5 has been played.
Wow. Okay, Hikaru.
So instead of trying to play h5, he went for the only other way to nibble on the position. F5.
Exactly. So we do have in the position the queen still on the e5 square. He has played king e7, and after king g2, f5, in the words of Walter Brown, immediately, you get in f5.
And just one move now for Magnus to make the time control. After he makes this move, he will receive his extra 30 seconds. 30 seconds and 30 minutes. Yeah, more importantly, 30 minutes.
You get that bonus of 30 minutes. And it's such a relief after being under so much pressure to get that extra 30 minutes. You just feel like somebody threw you a lifeline. Okay, so we're going to have two very long, hard fights today, which is excellent. Love it.
Oh, yeah, right before the rest day, right? So tomorrow, of course, there's not going to be around. We're having rest day. And the day after that, we'll be back in session with the second half of the Sinquefield Cup.
Yes. Well, if the second half is as exciting as the first half, we're going to be really blessed here with the most elite tournament on American soil in 50-plus years. That the tournament's going to be exciting, I think, to the very last round.
Oh, by the way, over a quadruple.
By the way, now that you mention it, since this is round 3, the two games that we're seeing today will be featured in round 6. So it may come down that Hikaru Nakamura,
actually,
Magnus.
That is incorrect.
Oh no!
And the reason for that is they wanted to avoid a triple.
3 blacks in a row. Of course.
Exactly. So there was a triple color threat, and because of that, Naka and Magnus will actually be playing their last game in the penultimate round, in round 5. So
nice.
Also very exciting, though. I mean, that'll be a Saturday, so perfect day to watch a battle like that.
Oh, for sure. And my suspicion is that game will be the decisive one for first place. Who gets the 70,000 and who gets the 50,000?
Indeed. It looks like it's headed in that direction.
Wow.
With the fine form that both of these players are in.
And Magnus has reached the time control. After the move f5, he has played, in fact, the move queen c8, and he's leaving it up to Hikaru to try to figure out, can he squeeze this position any further? Hey, how's this for an idea, guys? I've just come up with I think, a genius idea. How about queen to d6?
Queen d6 has been played.
With the idea that if white does nothing, okay, just bear with me so at least I can show you what I have in mind. King f6, and not to play the moves e5 and e4, but to say to you, look, your queen, the white queen, is trapped on the c8 square. I'm going to play king e5, and just to show the idea, I'm going to play king d4, and if you go, I'll play king here. And notice your queen isn't moving, and eventually I'm going to play c4, move my king probably to b3, and I'll just run my c-pawn up the board. How's that for wild?
Idea. That will definitely go in the magazines and books if that's the way that Nakamura wins this game.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think white will be obligated to play e3 at a certain moment. Let me go back and show where the moment we reach this position, probably white has to stop black's king from crossing to d4 with the move e3. Now, the fact is that does weaken the bishop's support. If that's going to be a decisive factor or not, I'm not sure.
Nice idea, though.
Cute.
Yeah. Very reminiscent of...
Nigel Short's great victory over Jan Timman.
Where he had a similar king walk. That was really a middle game, so that was totally astonishing. This an endgame. I'm more used to seeing it, but still, it would be just a really cool way, as Magnus said earlier in the tournament, the economy of forces. He was talking about his brilliant F3 defense against Gadakamsky. Whenever you see a king, march into the battle and win the game, it feels you've used everything in your position.
In this case, I mean, aesthetically, not only is it very pleasing, but to do it with the queens on the board is most especially so.
And actually, it looks like Magnus has preempted that immediately and has played E3.
Didn't even...
so we didn't even have to play King S6, E5. That king was getting nowhere near him.
Right. Didn't even have to provoke the move. What do you say, Jen? Since we've made the time control, how about taking a break and coming back in 5 minutes or so? What do you think?
Sounds like an idea. Yes, we're going to have some really exciting long games here, so don't go away. We're going to be back for more from the Sinquefield Cup in just a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to the Sinquefield Cup. We are here in St. Louis, the strongest tournament in American history, and we are looking for ways for Nakamura to squeeze a knife in here against Carlsen. I mean, it looks like he's got a good position, right? He's got the exchange, he's got this potential c-pawn push, but right now Magnus is holding on to everything. Yasser, you were trying to invade.
On the break, I came up with a rather imaginative idea for Magnus. We've just seen the move King H2 for Hikaru, to defeat Magnus. And the idea is we're expecting that White is going to shuttle his king back and forth and say, as we say in Missouri, show me. Okay,
The show me state.
The show me state. I'm thinking of the move King G5. So let me just show you what I have in mind. First of all, I want to trade this pawn on G3 for this pawn on H4. After this swap trade, I've exposed White's king, and I can try another break, this time with the F-pawn. Before, notice we're trying to bring our king across the center of the board. Oh my goodness. I believe
and it looks like
a
the move
draw
H5 was played.
And a draw
but then
agreed.
Instead a draw was agreed. Now I wonder if after H5 Nakamura anticipated that White would just stop your little plan and play King H3 himself.
Possibly
so. Because, the king is not so exposed if H4, king takes H4, correct?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, let's go back. Let's go back.
So that must be the reason. So a pretty thrilling contest in which we thought Nakamura might even take down Carlsen, but instead
a draw was agreed.
The result that we did think was more likely, but we just didn't think it was going to happen so soon.
No, and I really did expect Hikaru, as we've seen so many times in his career, especially in the U.S. championships that he was playing, he would press in every type of position, and I just don't see why he agreed so quickly to the draw.
Probably because he saw more and just respects Magnus, maybe over-respects, but he just thought, he probably looked at the idea H5, didn't think he could get H4 in because of King H3, and thought that, I was wondering about the other idea, what he thought E5, E4 was going to amount to as well.
Also.
So those seem to be the two possibilities, right? Because right now we're basically just at a standstill, so Black needs to do, I don't want to use the often bad metaphor used by journalists, stalemate.
Right.
That has such a specific definition in chess, correct? But here it's like we got to break through in some way. Your king march is not working. H5 doesn't seem forcible. H4 rather. And so it's got to be E5. But what do you think White was going to do against that?
I don't know, and I'm really intrigued when Maurice does get an opportunity to speak with Hikaru and Magnus, which I'm sure that will be forthcoming shortly. We'll definitely quiz them, because I was stunned by the draw, frankly. I think that this is a position you still need to torture your opponent.
Test
after
your
all.
opponent. Even
Absolutely.
if you think you see that.
It's a draw. Okay. I think the onus was on white in this final position
And of course, we are
to make the draw.
Get a chance to talk to both of the players, so that's exciting. Speaking of which, if anybody has any questions, don't forget to use our hashtag SINQCup, SINQ Cup. If you get them in early enough, you never know, we might even be able to pose them to our players right here.
Exactly.
Up in the audience.
All right. That leaves us, by the way, at the halfway point. That does mean, of course, that Hikaru keeps his lead. A fine result.
And we have another result in. We can see that Gadakamsky and Levan Aronian either a very long and elaborate draw offer, or the game is also over.
And a draw has been agreed.
Okay, so the first day of the Sinquefield Cup that has drawn no blood, but certainly still plenty of excitement. And
good chess.
As we mic up our tournament leader, Nakamura, we should point out that he still leads the tournament. All draws means the tournament ends are exactly as they were last round.
Exactly.
So Nakamura in the driver's seat with Carlsen. Carlsen is just going to be half a point behind. And to remind everyone, tomorrow we've got a free day, so everybody can rest up and maybe study your tactics. And then on the 13th, that's a Thursday, we're going to see Gadakamsky. The 13th is Friday. The 13th Friday, we've got Gadakamsky playing white against Magnus Carlsen, and Levan Aronian white against Hikaru Nakamura.
Excellent.
And the reason Nakamura gets 2 blacks in a row is because he had 2 whites in a row.
To start the event. That's
Fair
exactly
enough.
right.
We can't give him that much of an edge,
Yeah,
even though he's the St. Louis hero.
Fair is fair.
And here we go, and here he is, Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura with Grandmaster Maurice Ashley on today's exciting game.
Indeed, with the tournament leader, Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura, the U.S.'s best player, and now I believe the number 4 ranked player in the world. After a draw today, he should have leapt past your next point. You were like 0.7 points behind, so I think you're now number 4 in the world. We can check that, but with the live ratings, that should be the case. First of all, you came at the board. You know, you surprised us because we all were going to have shades on before you came down here, but the draw was so quick that we forgot our plan.
Okay, right.
So you beat us to it. What's up with the Ray-Bans?
I don't know. I just went to St. Louis Galleria earlier and I bought a pair of sunglasses. I didn't, felt like mixing it up considering my bad score against Magnus in the past. So from a historical standpoint, I think it was Pal Benko who did it when he played Mikhail Tal like half a century ago. So, other players have done it. I felt like experimenting, trying something new, and I think it seemed to work.
It seems to work in your favor, absolutely. Yeah. You also played extremely bold chess today. We saw this move G5, then we saw the move B5. Did you feel like you needed to play super aggressive against him just to do what?
Well, actually, I thought I kind of had to do that because if I didn't play like that, I thought I was just worse. Because in the opening, Magnus had a lot more space. If I don't try to do something to get active, I'll just end up losing very painfully and very slowly. So I felt like I actually played quite well. I definitely was better in the game, but I'm not really sure if it was ever enough to win. There was probably one point when I played this move Rook A7 where I maybe could have played the move King F8, but I still didn't see anything that was clearly winning. And the problem is there are a lot of different endgames where I'm not convinced that I can win. So, I tried, but Magnus is the number 1 player in the world, and he defended quite well.
What point in the game did you feel like it was stabilizing itself to a draw? How early was that in your estimation?
Well, only at the end, really. Because I was still trying to win up until pretty much the end. But the problem is that the only idea to try and win is to play this move E5 and E4 to block the bishop on the H1, A8 diagonal. But the problem is when I do that, the bishop comes around the other way to G2 and H3, and then the queen's tied down to the rook, and it's just there isn't anything I can do. In fact, I can end up worse in that position if I go a little bit crazy.
Now, Grandmaster Seirawan thought that a good idea was to maybe play for H5, H4, and trade off there, and then maybe try to play for F4. In that position. What did you think about that idea?
At the very end, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, but the problem is white just puts the king on H3 and waits. That's the main problem. White goes king H3 and bishop G2, and I don't see what I'm doing at all. And once again, I think I can end up worse if I'm not careful. So it didn't really make much sense, and it was just much more pragmatic to take a draw at that point.
Now you're at 2.5 points. How does it feel? You're clearly in first place still.
I mean, it's good. I'm playing well so far, but there's still 3 more rounds, and in the past I've had some good starts to tournaments and some rather epic collapses. So this time around, I'm not going to get my hopes too high. I'm just going to try and make good moves.
And on the rest day, what do? You go hang out or more study?
Well, I mean, it's really disappointing that I drew today because, okay, obviously it's September 11th. Of course, we all know what happened, but at the same time, it's also my stepfather's birthday. So I really, really badly wanted to win this game for him. But, it just wasn't enough. So I assume tonight and tomorrow I'll probably go out and celebrate his birthday a little bit. And then also there's a Cardinals game, which I'm looking forward to as well, even though I'm not a Cardinals fan. As everyone knows. So
which team are you a fan of?
Oh, of course I'm a Yankees fan.
Yankees.
What else? Yeah. I'm from New York. What can I say?
This
Yankees
is why
are
we
the
like
best.
you so much. Of course.
Well, we'll see if I'm so well liked here after today.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your fine results so far.
Thank you.
Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura, #1 player in the U.S. And look, Nakamura, we see our hosts are definitely honoring your shades today. A good look, a lot of fun.
Let's change the trend up a little bit.
Sure, mix it up,
Nakamura
as he said. Well, a great game, a great round of chess. We've been really, really privileged here for 3 rounds in a row. All the games have been great fights. And I tell you, today, I was on the edge of my seat. I think the critical moment in the game was when Hikaru played the move knight f6 to e4 instead of rook d8. I think Magnus might have been under more pressure in that case. But let's get to the world's #1 player.
We have Magnus Carlsen with Maurice Ashley.
Yes, indeed, Jen, thank you. With the world #1, Magnus Carlsen, after a difficult fight with Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus, first of all, were you surprised at all by the Ray-Bans that your opponent came to the board with? Have you ever played anybody else who had shades on?
No, not really. I don't know why he did that, but okay, it was cool.
You didn't seem nonplussed in any way by it. The game itself, though, was difficult. I mean, he played hyper-aggressively, moves like g5 and b5. Were you surprised by this, and did you think you handled it well?
Yes and no. No. I'm never really surprised when he plays aggressively. That's his style. And I thought g5 was not really an aggressive move. It's just a logical follow-up to his previous ones. And then we get this position more or less by force. b5 I was a little bit surprised by. I thought at first it was too risky, but probably it was a strong option. And then we get one of these positions where there are so many opportunities, but it's very hard to tell whether any of them are any good. And I felt that I clearly didn't find the best line, and I definitely suffered.
Did you feel you were in danger of losing at some point in this game?
Yeah, at some point my position was getting a bit worse, and I was burning a lot of time as well. But still, there was some kind of inherent solidity to my position when I given up the exchange. I mean, I don't really have any weaknesses around my king, and his c-pawn, his king is always going to be weak, so I didn't feel any particular danger there, although I think he could have set me some more problems than he did.
Were you surprised at the draw at the very end that he stopped so quickly, or did you think he might have tortured you a little bit more?
No, I thought at the end, I guess he realized if he tries to push e5 and so on, I go e4 myself, and he's probably risking as much as I am, so I sort of expected him to give up right there.
That was your second white in the tournament, and now you're going to have 2 blacks and 1 white. What do you feel about the remaining games?
Well, now I'm playing the Americans into the next round, so that's going to be interesting, especially to see if Gata is going to play a little more aggressively with white than he did today. And then obviously the game with Hikaru in the 5th round is going to be a big one.
And you're not projecting, I guess. I don't even like to ask this question anymore because the answer is always, I'll take one game at a time. But what are your projections for those games?
It was very nice to get a win in the first round. I'm a little bit disappointed that I couldn't make anything of my advantage yesterday, and I had to suffer today. So obviously it doesn't look as great as it did after the first round, but I think I still have good chances, and if I can score +1 again in the last 3 rounds, I think it's going to be a pretty good result.
Will it be enough to win the tournament, the way Nakamura is playing?
Well, if I beat him, it will.
Indeed. Well, thanks very much for joining us, and good luck in the rest of your games.
Thank you.
World number 1 Magnus Carlsen, after a tough draw, but he held it together going into the rest day. Back to you, Jen and Yas.
Thank you.
Magnus is making such great interviews with us. I enjoy his repartee as he comes on.
Picking up a few extra fans before he heads off to his World Championship match.
I think he's making fans of all of us. Very well spoken and very objective too. He recognized.
So it's not just his looks, you're saying?
Yeah,
he's not just a pretty face.
Not just another pretty face. He recognized that things have gone wrong in these last 2 games. He's given up an advantage against Aronian where he really felt, and deservedly so, that he should have pressed. And today, he was really thrown on the defensive rather early, and he had to scramble to save it.
Right. But that being said, still 3 rounds left. And
everything to play for.
Lots of excitement in store. And you mentioned he pinpointed that 5th round game against Nakamura. And now with the black pieces is going to be a crucial one for the tournament. So
precisely.
Everyone make sure you're not doing anything on Saturday.
Yeah, we're all closed this weekend.
That is the big day here at the Sinquefield Cup for us. And we're actually getting Kamsky set up. And
right.
We should mention also this World Championship in Chennai.
Coming up in November.
And like we were talking about how Carlsen has so many fans, and I heard that even in India, some of the little kids are rooting for Magnus.
Well, I'm sure that's true that he has fans in India too. But don't forget that in India, really. Anand is really a big sports figure, a real hero.
All right.
In the same league as cricket players.
And for the United States, that would be more like baseball or
basketball,
just like
football.
right up there with the major stars of the world.
Absolutely.
And we actually have got Grandmaster Gada Kamsky, our reigning U.S. chess champion, and they're getting set up for an interview right now. And we're gonna move to Gada and Maurice.
Draw, yeah? Okay.
With the reigning U.S. champion Gada Kamsky after an interesting draw with Grandmaster Aronian. Welcome, Gada. You were mentioning off camera that you felt that in this position you were doing very well throughout the game, and at some point you let it slip.
No, not really. I was playing the opening just to make a draw, and then he gave me some chances with the King G7, King G8 a move. So I got really excited, and then I couldn't find a plan, and as I always screwed up, and Black was actually better, like after 20 moves or so.
Now you just said you were playing the opening just to make a draw. That's pretty surprising considering your position in the tournament.
Because the last 2 games I realized I'm not really in a good form, so I just needed to recover and to make a draw and save my energy for the other games. But at some point during this game I lost track of it, and Black became actually much better. But then he let me sleep, and the endgame was drawn. It was pretty exciting, I guess.
So now that you've completed this game, at least you got your draw that you wanted.
Yeah.
What do you think about going into the next game against Carlsen?
Well, I'm not thinking about that game yet. I just need to recover, and the way I play here, I am not in a good form, so we'll see. Just, what do you want me to say? I mean, like, well, obviously I try to play every game like, it's not like I went and I decided like, okay, let's make a draw. I just decided, play solid chess and not to take any risks today, because in the first 2 games against Magnus, I just decided to play open chess and fighting chess, and I took risks and I lost. And yesterday, the same thing, I just decided to play active chess, sacrifice the pawn for initiative, and then I lost. So I decided today just, no more active chess, just solid chess, professional, draw, go home. It's like...
Indeed. Well, we thank you for that frankness,
Right.
and good luck in the rest of your games.
Okay, thanks.
U.S. champion Gadakomsky after a necessary draw, at least to stop the bleeding. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Well, that has always been the professional approach, that after a loss, or a second loss most especially, you just need to recover your equilibrium. And playing a solid draw is very, very understandable. On the other hand, as Gada said, he wasn't very pretentious in the opening. He wasn't fighting for any major kind of an advantage. And then suddenly, he did have something very good. I mean, he really had the superior position. And somehow this conflict between playing solid and playing all out got mixed up. And as he said, he ended up becoming worse at a certain moment, which was a big surprise, I think, for both players.
That's right. Yeah, the game did have a lot of twists and turns, and actually, some people are making fun of us in our hashtag Sinquefield because
I can't
we
believe
predicted.
that.
I know they made fun of us. Really.
I'm shocked.
What do they have to chomp on there?
There you go.
But anyway, they were saying that we were predicting a long night of chess and 2 games that went down to the absolute wire, and 2 minutes later, both games were agreed drawn. So apparently, we are wrong sometimes.
Shock.
Go figure, right?
Go figure.
And we do have our 4th competitor here that we're getting set up, and that is our lovely color-coded Levon Aronian today.
You're pink, I'm gray, and he's the mixture of both of us.
Yeah, that's right. And he's with Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, and to talk about his game today.
Indeed, with Armenian giant Levon Aronian, the number 2 player in the world, had a somewhat shaky start, losing the first game, then had a difficult game, drawing that game, and now this 3rd game where you felt you had some real chances to maybe even win the game.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I deserved them because I didn't really play well the starting phase of the game. Okay, I had a really nice position on the move number 15, and then I kind of blundered a little subtle idea. Actually, at this moment, c4, what he played, I was planning to take d takes c. Then I realized he can play queen c3 here. And then it's still equal. So, but I wasn't happy with this.
Did you go into the game trying to win with the black pieces, trying to get back in the tournament?
It's the chance, you have to try and create chances yourself. And I know that Gata is a great player. He always fights and he always tries to win himself. So
surprisingly, he said that a draw for him would have been okay because after his last 2 losses, he felt like he was playing badly when he was playing actively. So he wanted to just be solid and maybe even just make a draw so he can recover.
Yeah, I had this feel, but I kind of tried to push for it, try to make him play for a win a little bit, So, and I almost succeeded because he had a slight advantage at the point. But then I think I overtook, after I played f5, I think I have an advantage there. But then I didn't have so much time. I couldn't figure out what to play. Actually, on move number 34, I think queen f6 was strong. But one thing that I didn't like was king g2, knight e4, take e, rook e4, rook c4.
Show that line right there.
And
so you're saying here you should have played queen f6 instead
yeah,
of queen g7, but you didn't. Wait, sorry.
Somebody told me later that
king g2 you didn't like because of knight e4.
Yeah, I didn't like because I saw rook c4 and then I kind of felt it's some kind of a trap. But here I can practically make any move. For example, bishop h5. Yeah.
Because his knight is frozen, pinned, and you have all this triangulation attack on his position.
Yeah, this was definitely my chance. And later on, got to play it precisely, and position was equal.
So how are you feeling? I mean, it's like you're kind of trying to get out of your own way a little bit.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to recover after pretty lousy start. But all right, at least we had a game. I think I would be unhappier if I just played correctly and played for a draw.
So next game you get Hikaru Nakamura again. What are you thinking about that matchup?
I'll try to do my best. I like to play against him. He's an interesting opponent, and let's see what happens.
What did you think about his Ray-Bans today? That was the talk of the tournament, him walking in with those shades on.
He played in a cap, I think, before, so I don't know what comes next.
Indeed. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with the rest of your games. Grandmaster Levon Aronian, after a difficult start, we look forward to seeing his next 3 games. Back to you guys.
Posing the question, what comes next?
That is a very good question. We do have an entire day off for Nakamura to go shopping, so...
Maybe he goes for a different hairstyle, different look.
Well, in the driver's seat for that 70K, he can do a lot of damage.
Absolutely, sure. He could come to the board as a blonde. What do you think of that? And Nigel Short once did it. He had his hair colored.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was pretty stylish. Yeah, you got to get, like I mentioned earlier, the World Chess Hall of Fame having this massive chess and fashion show in the fall.
Right.
The Alexander McQueen show, the biggest Alexander McQueen show since the absolutely blockbuster one in New York that sold out every day. So it's going to be a pretty thrilling stuff happening over at the museum as well.
Very good.
And we actually have one more thought from Grandmaster Maurice Ashley.
Well, I'm thinking he could come in maybe a Liberace jacket. Certainly a Yankee cap would do him well, although I know all the St. Louis fans here hate me for saying that. But Nakamura off to a fantastic start, 2.5 out of 3. You can't ask for anything more. Okay, you could have asked for 3, obviously, but 2.5 out of 3, leading the pack. Half a point behind is Magnus Carlsen. He's got to be disappointed that he couldn't press Nakamura today, and he's going to have black against Nakamura in 2 days, and he has 2 blacks left to go in the tournament. So a little bit of a challenge for him, but certainly not something he can't overcome. The other 2 tail enders, both of them look like they'd be happy to play these 3 rounds tomorrow and get it over with, because they don't seem like they have a lot of energy. So they'll need a rest day so that they can get their brains clear to be able to fight for the title of the Sinquefield Cup, and I think it's going to be a thrilling finish.
Oh, yes, we can't wait to see what's going to happen, and I think in addition to rest and shopping, the players are also going to see the Cardinals game tomorrow. So just a fun-packed week here in St. Louis. If you're not with us already, please join us. And to recap, we are not having a game tomorrow, so rest up, study your Nakamura and Carlsen games, and look forward to Friday. For round 4, where we have Gada Kamsky playing with the white pieces against Magnus Carlsen. I can bet you one thing, Carlsen is not going to play solid for a draw. That game is going to have some fireworks.
Without question.
And he's hoping that Kamsky doesn't play too solid.
Yeah.
He says, I'm hoping Kamsky gives me a little bit more to chew on than he might have today.
Right.
And then Aronian is going to be playing against Nakamura with white, an opponent he's done pretty well against, and sure to be a very interesting game with these 2 creative players. So thanks, everyone, for all of your comments on the broadcast. And join us again Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Clear your schedules for the thrilling finale here of the Sinquefield Cup. I'm Jennifer Shahade, and I'm signing off for Yasser Seirawan, Maurice Ashley, and the whole crew here at the St. Louis Chess Club.
Thank you, Jen.